Hello, I'm Don Hall. I'm in Stockton, California at the studio of my good bud Puka Pin. And Puka's ancestry is from Peru, and she's inspired by the ancient Peruvian artworks. Why don't you explain a little bit?
Sure, yeah. So I'm inspired by the Muche tribe's pottery. They like to do a lot of sculptural work. So they do a lot of serpents, facial features, and a lot of donuts for sure.
Great. These stirrup vessels are pre-Columbian terracotta, created by Muche potters using primitive construction and firing techniques. Unlike Puka's demo, where she takes advantage of modern equipment.
So I'm going to be making a little Muche tribe inspired pottery vase, and it's cut up in 3 different parts. So I'm going to start off with a sphere, then I'm going to make a donut, and then the lip. So here we go. All right. So first, we just get this guy on the bat, nice and secure. Do a little coning. To make the clay nice and homogenized. And we do one more of those guys for good measure. To centering. So I'm using a bat system, and it's a little bit warped because I use it a lot, but here we go. Now we start opening up the hole. Add some water. Open it up. Compress the bottom. Add some more water and pull it out just a little bit more. Now I'm going to start pulling the walls, plenty of water inside and out. And I start gradually curving the inside of the rim as we're making a sphere. There's a lot of clay at the bottom here still, so I'm going to pull that up with the rest of it. Alrighty. Now we're going to start working on closing up this vessel. So a lot of collaring is going to take place. So plenty of water on the outside. I use mostly my thumbs and my index finger for support. Close it up. You know you're doing it right when you see a nice triangle in the center there. So let me position my hands at the bottom and work my way up. So at first, it's going to look like a nice bud vase, but we will be removing that rim at the very end. go into here because when I collared it, now it's really thick here. So I have to thin out those walls just a little bit. Now I have a very narrow opening that I can close up. Can remove the top. Removing the top. Over and over again. Alrighty. Metal rib tool to kind of take off that bottom portion. Remove it, and now we can smooth out that top. Alright, so we have finished the sphere, which is this guy right here, and now we have to flip it over and trim the foot. But in order to do that, we need to throw another vessel to have this lie on while we're trimming it. So that's what the next step is. So once again, just throwing another cylinder. Add some water. It's a little wobbly, but it doesn't matter too much because this is just a chuck. Alright. Now I need the calipers. Alright, so this is about the width of the piece. I'm going to double check. So definitely much wider. Alright. Widening it out. Compressing the bottom. Perfect. Alright, so we're ready to trim the piece. So we have this guy on the chuck. Now I have to make sure that it is leveled. So I have to turn this guy a little bit more to the right. Perfect there. Perfect there. Perfect there. So we are good to go. Make sure it's secure. And we start trimming. So we don't want too small of a foot, otherwise it'll be wobbly. So we're gonna do very minimal trimming. There, I'm just gonna make a little line for the foot. Remove that excess. Alright. And now we can burnish it, which is polishing the clay with the metal rib tool. And just to make sure that the bottom is flat, I like to finish it off with this tool. Burnish the foot. Oops. Alright, we won't worry too much about that. Alright, now that we've done that, we want to burnish the other side, so we're just going to flip it over and get to smoothing. Alright, so it looks smooth enough. Alright, and then we'll keep in mind that the Muche tribe did not use a pottery wheel or a metal rib tool per se. to smooth out and burnish the piece. They used stones and their fingers to smooth things out, and they even hand built their pieces. So even this donut right here was hand built, not hand thrown. But since we have it now, might as well. Okay. Now we will move on to the donut. Yeah. It's time to make the donut. So it's going to be an extra small donut because this is about half the size of this guy. So let's get to throwing. Definitely plenty of coning. I'm going to center down, push it down so it could be a little bit wider. Add some water and pull it out a bit more. I'm not going to pull it out too much because I have to make sure that it is a small donut. Okay. Now we need to differentiate the wall. So I'm going to just make a little divot in the center here and push halfway down. And a little bit more water. And this might be too much clay, but that's all right. We could just take it off. So now that we have two walls, we need to throw the first wall. So I'm going to thin this guy out. And the second wall, thin it out as well. I'm going to bring him out just a little bit more so it's out of the way, so I can put my fingers inside. I have room to move. And I'm going to curve it over the ceiling. Alrighty. And now we do, oh, there's a lot of water inside of there. So before I close it, I need to collect it all. So let me just make this smaller before I do that. There we go. Now we can stick our sponge in there. Now we have to be very, very careful not to add any water to the inside. Curving the outer wall and curving the inner wall. Now I just like to wet my fingertips. And now I'm going to connect the walls very slowly. And put one finger over the other and meld them together. There it is. Now we're going to smooth it out with a sponge. And there we have it, a nice donut ready to dry. Alright, so now it's time to trim the donut. So I have it upside down on this Griffin grip. I just got this guy about 2 months ago. It's been super helpful because it centers your piece for you. Just turn it around, nudge it back into the center, turn it around, wiggle it to make sure it's snug. Turn it to tighten it and lock it in place. Now you're ready to go. So here we go. We're just making this donut nice and smooth, no jagged edges. So we got the small rib tool and we're just burnishing it. Right, and then we flip it over. And do the same thing on the other side. Perfect. A perfectly polished donut. All right, so now the last step is to make the little spout. So this has to be very small because this guy's a very mini guy. So here we go, another vessel. So this one requires a lot more of your fingers rather than your hands because it's so small. There we go, okay. Drilling down all the way, collaring. Trying to get the base at the bottom here. And pulling the walls. This already is too tall, but that's okay because we can just cut this guy off. We need to make sure that that base is nice and narrow. So I'm removing a lot of the base with the nail of my thumb. Taller and taller. We're almost there. Now we can focus on the rim. Maybe flare it out just a tiny bit more. I think we are good now. Good to go. Alright guys, so it's time to assemble all our parts. So we need to put this donut on top of this sphere. I made a couple holes prior, so might as well cut it on that portion. So I use my metal rib tool and just go straight down. And I try to do my best calculation as to where I should cut it. I always undershoot it just in case. And now we have two parts. Right. Now we have two parts and looks like it was thrown pretty evenly, so that's great news. Now we make sure and double check. So now I have to probably taper it off at the ends here. Very minimal tapering. Almost there. Okay, and now I try to place it perfectly centered, so I try my best to eye it. Okay, and make my marks. Next, we make our holes so that it could be connected and not explode in the kiln. So number 1, pull it out, and number 2. And scratch and attach. Make sure you do it on both sides. Alrighty, and then we have a little bit of leftover redstone slip. So I just dabble it on there a little bit. A little goes a long way. This is the glue to hold it together. Alright. Wipe off my hands so they're nice and clean. And place it gently where it goes. Make sure you're keeping an eye on the center. And now it is time to make the little snakes to go around, the little coils to fill in those holes. So roll out pretty thick coil. Make sure it goes all the way around. A little bit longer. And press down on the edges. All the way around. Same thing on the other side. This will get rid of any hollow areas that are showing. Make sure it's nice and secure. And while that dries, we can start working on the top portion. Now we can measure, make sure it stays on there in the center. Flatten it a tiny bit more. This is definitely something that you eye. Okay, I will mark the center and make my hole in that area. And pull it out. We don't want these guys shaking around in your piece like a, you know, musical instrument. Okay, now we can scratch and attach. bit of slip. Just dab it on there. All right. And place it gently. Turn it around. Make sure it's in the right place. And gently press. And we'll be making another coil for this guy as well. Perfect. Okay. There we go. Hug it nice and tight. Now while we wait for that to dry, this is ready to touch. You can use your little brush to get rid of all these guys. All right, so now we're going to meld. We're going to meld this piece into the bottom and the top piece. So first we just press hard, then we're going to make these nice quick movements to smear the clay onto this piece. All right.
Well, thank you, Puka. That was very informative.
Thank you.
And it's such a special shape because it has, cultural meaning to you. you
Right.
know, and it's really, I really enjoy watching you do it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love doing this for you.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you doing it.